Hello. My guess is that you've been on YouTube and you've come across some wild camping videos that show some fantastic locations, beautiful sunsets, evenings around the campfire, and basically just an all-round chilled vibe, and you've decided that you could definitely do with a bit of that. So you want to go on a wild camp, but you don't know where to start. Understandable if you've never done it before. Digging further into YouTube will give you a lot of gear reviews, people trying to sell you kit, or just trying to tell you what's the very best of the very best, but also what's the very most expensive of the very most expensive. And that's not where you want to be if you're starting. The other end, you've got the prepper community. These are the people that think the world's about to end, and they'll take you out and they'll give you some bushcrafting skills, how to light a fire, just using 2 sticks and nothing but your wit. But again, not very useful if you're just starting out wild camping. Really what you want is a nice, easy to follow guide that just goes through some of the basics, and that's what I'm here for today. So I'm just going to go through the simple basic needs for a beginner wild camping. But before we talk about anything else, really we need to define what we mean by a wild camp. For some, a wild camp is anywhere where there's no toilet facilities or a shower block or an on-site shop. At the other end of the spectrum, there's people that don't think it's a wild camp unless you've been stripped bare naked, dropped in the middle of nowhere with just what you can fit in your wallet. For me, a wild camp is usually a means to an end. It's the end of a day's hike, wherever you find yourself, and you need to stop. It's a day trip like now, or it's been in that perfect location for that beautiful daybreak or sunset. But that doesn't mean that the location itself can't be the end goal and the wild camp adventure. But before you start your own wild camp adventure, there's a few things you might need to take into consideration. Kit helps keep you alive and comfortable when you're out of your comfort zone. But in order to stay warm and comfortable and alive, it's useful at this point just to remind ourselves of the rule of threes. And no, don't worry, it's not going to turn into one of those channels. But the survival rule of threes does give us a little guide on how to prioritise what we need to take with us if we're going out on a wild camp. And it goes something like this. You can live approximately 3 minutes without oxygen, and you can live approximately 3 hours when exposed to the elements, and you can live approximately 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. So if we use this as a guide to the kit that we need, let's start with the first one, oxygen. You're not planning on climbing Everest, so you're probably not going to need to take oxygen with you. So I think we can sort of dismiss or semi-dismiss the first rule of 3, if you like, the rule without oxygen. And that's where we come to the first really relevant point when wild camping of the survival rule of 3s, and that is 3 hours exposed to the elements, or 3 hours without shelter, should Mother Nature decide to turn on you and throw her worst at you. Now that could be rain, sleet, hail, sun, wind, water. All of these things, if you're exposed to them, can kill you within 3 hours. Make it easy on yourself. Choose the right time of year to go. Choose the right location. Don't set out on your first wild camp adventure in the middle of winter up a mountain. By choosing the right time of year, you'll also need less kit. You don't need to take waterproofs if it's not going to rain. You don't need to take big jumpers if the weather's going to be nice and warm. So with all this in mind, choose the right time of year, choose the right location, and it won't cost you an arm, a leg, or a life to go on your first wild camping adventure. With your climate and environment in mind, we can break down kit into 3 separate areas. The first thing is something to sleep on. You need to insulate yourself from the cold, hard ground. It's not called that because of how warm and comfortable it is. Easiest way is with an insulated roll mat like this one. They're cheap, readily accessible, and they work really, really well. I have slept on just one of those, but they're not very comfortable. They'll keep you warm, but they won't give you a nice soft night's sleep. For that, you might want to have an inflatable friend with you. I like mine on the large size. It's a lot more comfortable and you're less likely to roll off. With something to sleep on sorted, next you want something to sleep under. I go for this. This is my Hoops bivvy. Put a tent or even just a tarp, like the one I've got my gear laid out on, will stop you getting rudely awakened in the night. So I'm going to take my roll mat and put it into my bivvy, if the dog will move. Somebody knows where the most comfortable spot in the house is, don't they? Protected from the cold leaching ground below and the rains from above, we're almost there. The next thing we need to protect ourselves from is the chill of the wind in the night. Loads of options for that. There are quilts, there are blankets, there are sleeping bags, range of sizes, range of prices. Get one with the right comfort rating for when you're going camping. You're going at the right time of year, right? This one here is a simple 2-season sleeping bag, packs down very small, down material, and is more than good enough for most summer nights. This is just a blanket. These two together are more than enough for most autumn nights, and they pack up a lot smaller than most 3-season sleeping bags. Check the comfort ratings for the time of year you're going and the location you'll be in, and you'll be as snug as Lister in a tent. Good boy. Next in our priorities is water. You go 3 days without water. You're right. Believe me, the second you run out of water and you're thirsty, every minute feels like 3 days. So take more than you think you'll need. You're going to need water for probably washing when you're eating. You're going to need water for cooking if you're cooking. And you're going to need water for drinking. For you and your faithful companion if you've got one. Take 2 bottles instead of 1. If you calculate you need 1, take 2. My first solo wild camp, I took 2 bottles of water as were there. I had 5 litres in the car ready for me when I got back. I had a water filter with me, and I was walking around a reservoir, and I was still thirsty when I got back to the car. Take more than you need. You'll thank me for it later. And that moves on to food. Do you need it? 3 weeks apparently without food. Although you give it 2 or 3 days before you start dreaming about that perfect cheeseburger. Or give it 2 hours if you're in a traffic jam on your way to Dartmoor and you haven't had breakfast. So if all you're doing is going for an overnighter, do you really need to take a cooked meal with you? You probably get away with some nuts and some snacky stuff, handful of fruit, that kind of thing. But there is something nice about a warm meal at the end of the day. If you're going to have a warm meal, you're going to want something to cook on. I say cook. If you're doing it for the first time, stick with boiling water. Instant noodles are a firm favourite. Just pop them into the pan, put on the boiling water, and they're good to go within minutes. You do have to wash up after that, unless you go for the pot variety, in which case they come with their own container. They do take up room in your pack. Boiling the bag meals, anything, boiling the bag is always good. You can buy stuff like this all over the place. You can also get dehydrated ones where you pour the water inside. They're good, expensive. Another dried thing, couscous. Again, you need to throw that in the pot, a dirt cheap alternative to the more expensive ones. And it's always worth remembering that things like this and this can also be boiled in the bag. And let's not forget, every wild camper's must try the older British Army ration pack. I'm going to open this one in a second because I happen to know that in here is an all-day breakfast that I'm going to have for my dinner. The nice thing about anything boiled in the bag, anything where you're just using the water, is that afterwards you can use it to make yourself a brew. A small camping cooker like this one, you can pick these up for around about 10 English on Amazon. Don't expect them to last too long. You do get what you paid for with these, but they'll be good for quite a few years. I've had this one for quite a while, to be fair. These pouches are all about the same size. And these mess tins are absolutely ideal because you can just fold them in half and they fit in just right. Pro tip for you, whenever you're eating out of these boil in the bag things, whether it's a Wayfarer or British Army rations, invest in a long handled spoon. Stops you getting a sauce all over your knuckles. As you become more confident with your cooking and as you start to invest in better cooking gear, you might want to become a little bit more adventurous. To help add a bit of flavour to the vegetables. These are a big old time saver as well. These are 3-in-1s or 2-in-1s if you don't like them with sugar. Just remember to take all the little bits back with you. Oh, that covers all the things that you'll need to go on your first wild camp. Almost. You need to carry it all. So you need a bag to put it into. Now you could spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on a lightweight, ultra robust bag and then decide you don't like it. So my advice, get yourself down to your local Army and Navy store, see what they've got. They'll have some old Bergens. You can pay anything from sort of 20 quid English pounds up to £100 depending on the quality of it. Buy a cheap one. Nice thing about Army and Navy stores is that they'll always buy it back off you afterwards with a little bit of a loss. So you go out, buy yourself I think for your first wild camp you probably want something that's about 50 litres, particularly if you pick the right time of year. So something around about 50 litres. Get yourself out and always take it back when you decide you don't want it. So this is my bag. Quite an expensive one, but I'm just going to throw the gear in there and quickly cover again what we did. So the first thing I'm going to put in the bag is my something to sleep in. So this is my sleeping bag or my quilt or whatever it is that's going to protect you from the wind. And the next thing that I'm going to put it in to the bag is my something to sleep under. This is my bivvy, your tent, your tarp, whatever it is you're going to use, your basher, and I'm just going to pop that down on the side there. This is a piece of kit that is used on the outside, so it can live on the outside. Next thing I'm going to put in here are my rations. So in goes my food, and you might want to, if you're doing a hike or something like that, you might want to move some of your rations to an outside pocket. Oh boy. Sleeping mat, I'm going to pop that in there next. And then I've got my cooking equipment. Water, need to pack that away. Remember I said 2, I'm going to put 1 on the inside and 1 on the outside where I can reach it if I need it. That is pretty much all of your needs. I'm going to put my roll mat on the outside in just a second. A couple of things you might want to think about as well. First aid kit. I say think about it, you should always have one of these with you anyway. Just put that near the top as well. I assume at some point it's going to get dark. You might want a torch, little head torch there. I'm just going to throw in the top as well. Normally pack this slightly different if I was actually going on a hike. I had my chair, which I'm just going to throw in the top as well because I'm just heading out now. Another thing that's worth looking at, some good quality long stakes. You never know what the ground's going to be like. A long stake can be used in hard ground, but it's particularly useful in soft ground. So they're always good to go as well. It doesn't matter where you are while camping, whether you're on a campsite where there's no toilet block or whether you're in the middle of nowhere. What I will say, rules, leave no trace. This is where I've just been, this spot here. I've packed up all my gear, I've walked away from the spot and now I'm just looking, covering the ground, making sure that there's no lasting visible signs that I've been here. Now I say lasting because there's flat grass, that'll grow back. I chose this spot because it was away from the bluebells, don't want to damage those. And yeah, no trace. Of course, the other thing is nobody likes to lose gear, and we're just doing a final gear check. So that's how we leave a spot. Second most asked question I get after how do I wild camp is where can I wild camp? Now obviously this is going to be very country specific. I'm in the UK, so I'm going to talk about that. But if you're in another country, ask around, check on the internet, you know, websites, things like that, forums, camping groups for the country that you're in. I was in the Netherlands, and they do permit wild camping, but you have to be within so many meters of a stake, a marker in the ground. I did not find that, so I ended up camping in roughly the right area, but I couldn't say whether I was in close or far away from the marker. €500 fine if you get caught on that one. So yeah, check out the rules for the local country. In the UK, it depends on whereabouts in the UK you are. So in Scotland has right to roam, which sort of opens up massive parts of the country for wild camping. So you're up in the Cairngorms or around Ben Nevis, places like that. You can pretty much pitch your tent anywhere you like. There are some exceptions around some of the big lakes, Loch Ness and the likes of that. You can't wild camp there because of it'd just be flooded with tourists constantly. People living there. Wales, I don't believe Wales has any permitted camping sites. However, places like Brecon, the Black Mountains, over towards the coasts, Aberystwyth, Snowdon, places like that, you'll always find a nice quiet spot. In England, you've got the Lake District. Again, not allowed to wild camp there. There's no right to wild camp there, but there's a general rule of thumb that once you're above the highest fell wall, which I think is about 350 metres approximately, you're okay, you're good to go. Nobody's going to bother you there. If you try and hang around some of the big, again, tourist spots, they have rangers who will come and move you on. The only place in England where you can actually, I can nearly say allowed to wild camp, but you're not. It's not a legal right. That was shown to be the case a couple of months back, but they've opened it up permissive, is Dartmoor, and it is a fantastic location for your first wild camp. What I would say is if you're sort of middle of the country around Manchester way or up as high as Manchester, it might be worth heading up towards Scotland if you're really worried about the legalities of wild camping. If you're sort of below Birmingham, you're sort of really the only permitted place within a reasonable distance would be Dartmoor. So there we have it, beginner's guide to wild camping. Now you've got an idea of the kind of things you'll need and the kind of things to think about and the kind of places you might be able to go in order to start your wild camping adventure. If you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you have, you can do me a favour by giving the algorithm a little tickle by just clicking on that like button. I am thinking of doing more of these videos, more of these type of videos rather than the other type of videos. Probably thinking of doing a guide to tents next. If you'd like to see that, or if you'd just like to see more of these type of videos, you can let me know by hitting that subscribe button, and that'll let me know. Until then though, you know what I'm going to say, stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you on the next one. So here's a little bit of bonus footage if you've stayed around. While I was filming, sort of down there somewhere, only about 20-30 foot away from where I was filming, we went quiet just while I was packing a few things up and setting up a few things for a particular shot, and then two little badger cubs came out and started mooching around and feeding, so I managed to get some footage of that. Here it is.